Imagine waking up 30,000 years ago, right in the middle of the freezing ice age. You step out of your cave, grab your wooden spear, and look out at the horizon to scan for danger. But there is a massive problem. Everything past 10 feet is a complete, fuzzy blur. You desperately need a pair of glasses, but they won't be invented for another 29,000 years. You can't see the subtle movement of the leaves in the trees. You can't see the massive, camouflaged predator crouching in the tall grass. You can't track a herd of deer across the snowy plains. If you throw a spear, you are just wildly guessing. Today, having bad eyesight is just a minor inconvenience. You go to an eye doctor, put in some contacts, and go about your day. But in a prehistoric world where spotting danger a mile away was the only way to stay alive, being nearsighted should have been an absolute death sentence. Evolution is supposed to be a ruthless, unforgiving process that eliminates weakness. The cavemen who couldn't see the end of their own spears should have been eaten, and the genetic trait for bad eyesight should have been completely wiped off the face of the earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. So, why are millions of humans still born with terrible vision today? What actually happened to the cavemen who needed glasses? The answer goes against everything we think we know about evolution. Because bad eyesight wasn't actually a flaw at all. What if being nearsighted in the Ice Age was not a weakness, but a highly coveted, secret superpower? What if the squinting, blind cavemen are actually the only reason human civilization exists today? To understand this biological scandal, we have to look at the terrifying reality of the prehistoric hunting party. Imagine you were standing on the edge of the mammoth steppe. You were hunting alongside the strongest members of your tribe. To be a successful Ice Age hunter, you needed what scientists call emmetropia, perfect, uncorrected distance vision. You needed to be able to spot the twitch of a deer's ear from 100 yards away, calculate wind speed, and strike with deadly accuracy. If you were born with myopia, which is the medical term for nearsightedness, you were completely useless on a hunt. If the tribe put you on night watch to guard the campfire from cave lions, you wouldn't see the glowing yellow eyes in the dark until the monster was already mid-pounce. In the brutal math of prehistoric survival, the guy who needed glasses was a massive liability. It is time for your prehistoric survival test. You are the leader of an Ice Age tribe. You have 3 members of your group who are severely nearsighted. They consume valuable meat and water, but they cannot hunt, and they are too blind to guard the camp. The tribe is moving into a harsh winter, and resources are critically low. What do you do with them? Do you pick option A? Abandon them in the wilderness so the healthy hunters can survive? Option B, force them to walk in the very front of the hunting party to act as human bait for predators? Or option C, forbid them from leaving the safety of the cave and force them to stare at rocks all day? If you picked option A or B, your entire tribe will be dead in a month. Because while you might have perfect vision to hunt a mammoth, you are missing the one thing you need to survive the freezing winter. If you picked option C, you survive. You have just unlocked the greatest technological cheat code in human evolution. Here is the secret about bad eyesight that modern society has completely forgotten. What nearsighted people lose in distance vision, they gain in incredible, hyper-focused, up-close vision. The hunters with perfect distance vision were actually farsighted. If you handed a rugged Ice Age hunter a tiny, detailed object right in front of his face, his eyes would struggle to focus on it. It would literally give him a headache. He lacked the biological hardware for microfocus. But the squinting caveman who desperately needed glasses? His eyes were perfectly calibrated to see microscopic details just inches from his face for hours on end without ever experiencing eye strain. And 30,000 years ago, the ability to see microscopic details was the most valuable technology on planet Earth. Think about an ancient stone arrowhead. We see them in museums and assume some giant, muscular warrior casually carved them. That is a lie. Making a deadly, aerodynamic stone spearhead is an incredibly delicate, dangerous process called knapping. It requires you to strike a piece of flint with a heavy stone at the exact perfect microscopic angle to flake off razor-sharp pieces of rock. If you strike it just 1 millimeter off-center, the rock shatters, your weapon is ruined, and your hand is sliced open. A farsighted hunter could not do this efficiently. They didn't have the up-close focus. The nearsighted members of the tribe became the dedicated engineers. They were the original tech bros of the Ice Age. While the hunters were out risking their lives in the snow, the myopic humans stayed in the safety and warmth of the cave, churning out the high-tech, razor-sharp weaponry that allowed the hunters to kill mammoths in the first place. But the nearsighted engineers did something even more important than making weapons. They invented prehistoric thermal gear. The Ice Age was unimaginably cold. Temperatures regularly plummeted to -40 degrees. A thick pelt of bear fur wasn't enough to keep a human alive if the freezing wind could blow right through the gaps. Early humans needed tightly fitted, customized, insulated clothing. To make that, they had to invent the needle. Archaeologists have found prehistoric bone needles dating back 40,000 years. These needles were carved from tiny slivers of animal bone, and they are incredibly small. The eye of the needle, the hole where they threaded animal sinew to sew the clothes together, is so microscopic that even a modern human with perfect vision struggles to thread it. Imagine trying to carve a hole the size of a pinhead into a piece of bone using nothing but a sharp rock. Now imagine doing it in the dim, flickering light of a campfire. Only a human with extreme, hyper-focused nearsightedness could have accomplished this. The hunters may have provided the animal hides, but it was the blind cavemen who possessed the biological superpower to sew those hides into windproof, waterproof, tailored winter clothing. Without the nearsighted tailors, the elite apex predator hunters would have frozen to death in the snow. If the realization that human civilization wasn't built purely by the strongest warriors, but by a brilliant division of labor gives you chills, do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We are uncovering the forgotten heroes of human history, and I want you in the tribe. Now, let's look at the most mind-blowing evidence of this nearsighted superpower. Deep inside the caves of Chauvet and Lascaux in France, there are cave paintings that are over 30,000 years old. These are not just crude stick figures. They are majestic, highly detailed, anatomically perfect drawings of horses, lions, and bulls. But there is something deeply weird about these paintings. Many of the most detailed, beautiful pieces of art are located deep inside the darkest, most inaccessible tunnels of the caves. These are places where zero natural sunlight has ever reached. The ancient artists had to crawl on their hands and knees through suffocating, pitch-black rock tubes, carrying tiny animal fat lamps that gave off barely any light. And in that terrifying darkness, they painted masterpieces. When modern art historians and optometrists analyzed the strokes and details of this ancient cave art, they came to a shocking conclusion. The artists who painted these murals almost certainly had myopia. In a world before artificial lighting, having bad eyesight allowed these artists to focus intensely on the rock wall right in front of their faces, completely ignoring the distracting, terrifying darkness behind them. So, the next time you put on your glasses or complain about losing a contact lens, don't curse your terrible genetics. You aren't biologically flawed. You are just carrying the exact same superpower that kept the human race from freezing to death in the Ice Age.